the discussion, so also my presentation will be more dynamic. But first of all, I want to introduce myself. I'm Elena Pressot from University of Udine, and today I'm in charge of presenting you the practical side of which was the work package number 1. Okay, so I'm giving you a brief overview of which were the practical issues we deal with when we decided to design this survey, and we decided to launch it to the Alpine space manufacturing companies. So the concept where we started, the key question that also Franco asked me is what is factory of the future. So nowadays we're talking about Industry 4.0 because nowadays that is the common term for factory of the future. But 2 years ago, our project was based on this concept, on factory of the future. And this was the question we asked ourselves, because if we wanted to build maps that really provided a comprehensive scenario of manufacturing in the Alpine space, we needed to fix which were the key concepts, the key issues that companies were facing at that time. Okay, so we started from the sources that we had at that time. Firstly, there were these big consultancy companies that defined factory of the future as one of the mega trends that were impacting on manufacturing industry, together with servitization, together with reshoring. We spoke about this, and so why factory of the future matters? Because it's important not only from a technological point of view, but because it is really transforming business in the overall perspective. Secondly, there were already some European initiatives like Factory of the Future, applied public-private partnerships for collaboration and innovation in these topics. So they already fixed some key priorities in terms of enabling technologies, and priorities to invest on. And third, we needed to take into account the key definition we had, so that the fact that Factory of the Future indicates a variety of production technologies, of enabling technologies and devices and solutions that allows to connect both devices but also people. So we needed to consider also the organizational, the human resources issues, and these were enabling the digitalization of the overall operations, the value chain, and the business model. So it is a matter that invests not only in a single company, but the overall value chain and also the business and the industries in the overall context. So what we did was to build a reference framework, the 4 pillars that you saw also in Andrea's presentation, to study the factory of the future in a comprehensive way. So firstly, factory of the future is a strategic issue. And what does it mean? It means investigating which are the roles and responsibilities. Are companies aware of which are the new roles? Nowadays we speak about the digital officer, the people in charge of building the digital scenario for its company, but at that time we still hadn't this kind of terminology. So we needed also to know where to address the investments to really face this path toward Factory of the Future, which were the goals, but also which were the drivers, the enablers to take into account to drive this revolution. So, as you asked, is it only a technology issue, or is also something else? And also, which were the barriers that companies already facing this path were facing at that time? Secondly, it was an organizational issue, and it is an organizational issue. We saw an example of a question that was asking which is the organizational structure that really fits to your needs in this digital transformation. Which are the skills that are required, and also how companies can build the knowledge base to drive this revolutionary path. And this also means taking into account which are the communication means, but not only with the customers, suppliers, partners, but also the internal communication. How different functions are communicating in order to develop a path that is comprehensive to all the functional structures. Thirdly, it is a managerial issue because it invests the supply chain, and the companies are required to integrate with the information and the material flows with suppliers and customers. But it's also a matter of which are the intermediaries that are requested to enable, to facilitate these flows in my value chain. Secondly, it invests also operations. That means the new product development and engineering phase, but also the operational performance. We were talking about KPIs, for example. And finally, obviously, customers and the way I'm serving them, the way I'm delivering them the value, thanks to the fact that I'm doing a path toward digitalization. And fourth, for sure, technology matters. And this means having an IT infrastructure that is adequate for what are my needs, what are my goals, but also which is the importance and utilization level of digital technologies, which is not only having a software, hardware, but it's also a regulation issue, because we also ask to companies, are you aware of which are the ethical and the legislation issues that are involved in using this kind of technologies? So I'm giving you a brief overview of which were the questions we were including in this survey in order to obtain this overview, and they were obviously touching all these 4 points. These 4 issues were converted into questions that were really dense, I would say. So in fact, one of the problems we faced throughout the delivery of the survey was actually having the managers, CEOs and so on, answering to this really detailed survey, because we really wanted to have a complete picture of the effect of the future in the Alpine space. And you can see, for example, for roles and responsibility, we asked, as we said, we already said if there were the company have already an overall effort strategy in place or not a strategy at all, for example, or had some responsibilities or even maybe a roadmap, so let's say some long-term objectives. As regards to drivers, for example, we asked what is driving really factoring the future path in your company. So it is also matters of globalization and the future markets, the important markets, but it's also cost savings. It's also the fact that the time to market, the innovation rate is really faster, and it's also matters like beyond companies' boundaries. So, for example, increase the robustness or the flexibility of the supply chain. As regards organization, for example, we asked what are the skills that you think are important for your company to develop this factory of the future path. So you see, they are both more practical, more technology connected skills, but they are also including the ability to innovate, the ability to collaborate with other people, problem-solving capabilities, critical thinking. So we need both these cognitive abilities beyond the technological, the practical ones, to have this comprehensive path. And secondly, we ask also, are you really investing in these skills? What are you doing to enable in your company this factory of the future reorganization? So thirdly, as regards the management, we ask, for example, not only how are you connecting, how are you integrating with your suppliers, with your customers, but which are the new entrants that you are planning to introduce in your supply chain, because now as we saw, we need some kind of partners that are providing some skills that we don't have in our supply chain now. And then, for example, we saw also in Andrea's presentation, we asked also where are you really investing. Finally, we asked about technologies because, as we said, it's not only technology, but technology is needed. And so we asked, is your company actual IT infrastructure appropriate for the switch to the factory of the future? So, do you have appropriate hardware, software? Do you have a network infrastructure? But also, do you think there are some companies that 2 years ago were already setting an appropriate IT infrastructure? So, also 2 years ago, there were some companies really investing in these issues, or there were also mostly SMEs that really lacking appropriate infrastructure. And finally, for example, we ask for each technology the importance and the level of utilization. Sorry. And what we did, we declined all these issues, all these 4 issues into all the Alpine space regions. And what we obtained were the maps that Andrea presented you. Sorry. Okay, so this was my presentation really brief because I wanted just to give you the practical side of what does it mean building a map, a complete map and a complete survey to really investigate which was the status of factory of the future in the Alpine space. And maybe a challenging question for you. If we are launching this survey now, which are the answers that companies can give us now? Is there any difference in a 2 years' time? Is there a real development? We know that there are some national initiatives, some regional initiatives. Are they really having some effective impacts on companies? Are there these strategy, organization, management, and technology issues changing in companies? So maybe a question that remains open, and maybe we can go deep in maybe in a follow-up project that we can launch in the new call of Alpine Space. So thank you for your attention.
One question to your survey.
Yes.
I was wondering because when we are looking into the shop floor level and the management level and these kind of things, my feeling is, obviously these factory of the future and industry 4.0, they are done to kind of also cut back on costs, right? And usually one of the first things that you are thinking about is kind of cutting costs from let's say human resources. So from my point of view, but what I see at the moment is that, let's say, if we look to the shop floor, and most of the shop floors that we have visited also of highly effective and successful companies, there is not too much resources, human resources that you could actually cut on the shop floor. So from my point of view, what is happening now with this industry 4.0 is kind of that we are talking about more like these middle management that is actually affected by industry 4.0 automatization, because a lot of these kind of what people have been doing, kind of scheduling and so on and so forth, this is actually done automatically now. So my question is, has this been somehow reflected in the interviews and in the surveys that you have been doing, or where do they expect, let's say, to get the savings in?
Our investigation was different. It's not only are you really cutting costs, are you really putting people away using only automation. It was more, are you really investing in a purposeful way in these technologies? Are you planning to acquire the knowledges or invest, for example, in your knowledge base or in training people adequately? How are you really balancing also these issues between also human and technology. So it was more really to say how are you doing it? So what are you actually doing? Because I think there is no correct answer for this. Is it really correct to cut off costs inside the sense of operational stuff? Is really the right way to do it? Because we were just saying, okay, we have such a variety in these countries, we have such a variety in the manufacturing industry. Wow, how can we make this variety emerge?
My feeling is only, I mean, just to kind of bring this maybe into perspective, I think, let's say we say, yeah, there's Industry 4.0, factory of the future or whatever. We say, yeah, we need to kind of change the production planning system, or we have to change these and these organizational issues. The question is always, so why should I change, right? And people, I think, or most companies will be unwilling to change if they don't see, let's say, a monetary kind of return on investment, right? So I think we just had the student project, Michael, with you. I mean, if we would go there and say, yeah, we are doing this because we get more agile, I think it will be difficulty, right? I mean, with the project that we had, the student project, I think it was quite obvious. I mean, if you can't show that there is a kind of a saving in the production, nobody will actually change. So for me, it would be, I think, or maybe this is something that we need to further investigate, but I think there needs to be a clear value proposition and a clear saving, or a clear kind of increase in agility or something like that. So this is something that I'm wondering whether we could kind of map or kind of get this out of the results that we are, to some extent, that we already have in. Right?
It's a good point. I share, and now we are rushing time. When we will have a finger dinner or something like that, and we are working on it, looking for companies that moved, and we use it as a success story to convince, let's say, to push the other ones, big and small. One company near Trieste is Varsila, that they made investment in the shop floor, digitalization of big motors for marine big ships, and they saved the plant because the decision coming from Finland was closing. Productivity is low. So this is something that we have to tell a lot of persons, because they say 400 high qualified workers.
Exactly.
Grazie.
If I can add, one of the results was about start from the small. It's a big, can be a big change, but start from the small. Start from what is really needed in your company. Small projects, stimulate people to develop small innovations, small time educators.
Great, thank you.
Anyhow, in a hurry, please.
Yeah.
Start small, but in a hurry. We are always late.